Okay, this little screencast is showing you about the folio, which is the share game or the share project that you're about to do. So in the first page of the handout that you've got, it talks about the description of the assessment. So basically, you're trying to work out whether you can predict the best time to buy and sell shares to maximize your profits. So you'll have to investigate those kind of things, and further on in the task you'll actually see some ways of doing it. And we'll talk about the kind of things we'll be looking for when we're marking it. Now, big things, you have 4 weeks to do this task. Okay, it's due on June 21. So that's after our exam towards the end of term. You'll need to use technology, and you'll need to have these things. You'll need to have an introduction, evidence of the solution that you've developed, analysis of it, a conclusion, and any acknowledgements and things like that in an appendices. Just remember that repeated calculations should go in the appendices, not in the body of the work, because it can get very, very cluttered. Okay, so let's have a look at the scenario, the task. Very similar to what you had for the statistics one. However, this one's a bit more open-ended. Bob and Farmer Pickle were sitting down one evening discussing world economics over a quiet ale. Farmer Pickle said that with the economic instability, the share market is a poor investment option, and no matter when you invest, you will not be able to make a profit. He also said that trading decisions are like gambling, and you just need to take a lucky guess and hope for the best. Bob nearly choked on his salted peanuts and said in an angry plasticine voice that Farmer Pickle did not know what he was talking about. Who is right? Okay, you need to carefully design an investigation to solve this scenario. Your introduction will need to clearly state what you're trying to solve. So basically, Pickle is saying that you cannot predict the share market, and no matter when you buy and sell, you're always going to make a loss and you will not make a profit. Okay. Bob is saying the opposite, which is, yes, there are some things you can use that will give you a good indication when to buy and sell, and by buying and selling over a long period of time or something like that, you may actually be able to make a bit more money. So as a minimum, this is what you are required to do. Okay, so this is a minimum requirement. Now it's your choice whether you go further than this, but this is what you should do. As a minimum, you should buy and sell some shares over a period of time. So demonstrate buying and selling and break even to be able to show me that you can make money in the share market over a long period of time. There's a resources page, which is in your project handout, that tells you how to get things off the net and how to research. We'll also go through this in class, and you'll be able to show you how to get information that you can use. Okay, you'll need to calculate the capital gain or loss. You'll need to calculate any tax payable and discuss any market trends over the time that you had those shares. So that's the absolute minimum. Buy some shares, sell them later on, calculate the capital gain or loss, calculate any tax owing, and discuss what happened in the market over that time. Right, so that's your minimum. Anything above that is good. So other possibilities that you might want to look at is creating your own moving average, making your own share index, looking at dividends on those shares, look at inflation, look at yield, and if there's any other investment strategies that you've stumbled across in your research that you might find would help either argument. At the end of the day, the way in which you set up the project is what you need to solve. So if you are going to go wide and broad, make sure you do these first things at the top here, the first ones that we talked about up here. Make sure you do these ones first before you do anything else. So these ones here are the ones that you need to do right at the beginning before you do anything else. So the minimum ones are the ones you should do before you start heading down to the other ones. Okay. Once again, that's set up in the way in which you write your introduction. Your completed folio, which is the project at the end, needs to have these things on it. A detailed introduction. Please make sure your introduction is clear and concise, because that will then tell the person who's marking it what you're trying to find. The method of the solution should actually be in your calculations. You don't actually have to say, I will do this, I will do that, and follow through like that. The method is evident in the way in which you are solving it. Okay, you need to have a application of a model or strategy. So basically, how you're trying to solve this, and demonstrate this is the way you're doing it. So that'll be like things like buying your shares and then selling them, calculating your break-even price. And then if you're doing the further bits when you're creating your own index and looking at dividends, showing how that's working. That's using a mathematical model or strategy that is solving the problem. Okay. Then you'll need to do some sort of analysis and interpretation of your results. So you found your results, throw them in a table or something like that, and then analyze what you find and interpret what that is showing you. Okay. You'll need to talk about the limitations of what you've found. So that might be something like you've only got a short time frame you're looking over, or those kind of things. So be really careful with your limitations and assumptions in this project, because they actually have a bit of an impact on the way in which you solve it and the validity of your comment at the end or conclusion. So we'll talk about this in class as well, but that's really good to keep that in the back of your head. What's the limitation that's going on here? One of the big limitations is that you are using historical data. You're going back in time and grabbing a share price and using today's price to sell them on. So you've got a bit of a heads up about how those shares have performed over time. So maybe that's a bit of an unfair advantage. Your final report should have an introduction, your mathematical investigations, your analysis and discussion, and a conclusion. Just be careful that with all these here, it's all concise, and that, especially with your analysis and discussion and your conclusion, that you don't repeat yourself. Okay, which is sometimes hard to do, but be aware that if you're just repeating things over and over again, it gets a bit boring. You're going to be assessed against all these criteria here, and you've actually got on your handout the criteria sheets and the performance standards that you are going to be marked against. Okay, a couple other bit of hints about a folio. These are what you should have in your folio: a title page, contents page, introduction, calculation, analysis, and conclusion. So you'll see that this tells you the structure of how you should set it out, and I'd kind of follow through those things. Okay, your introduction is important because this tells the person who's reading it what they are going to be finding. Okay, and down here it tells you some ideas about what is what a good introduction should have. So it's an overview of the problem and indicate of if you are going to investigate more aspects associated with the initial problem. So if you're going to do that extension stuff, make sure say something like, I'm also going to investigate indices and make my own index and generate my own moving average to see if I can predict when to buy and sell shares. Okay, please make it very concise and not longer than about half a page, okay, because otherwise it gets a bit boring to read. For any calculations, make sure that all these things are paid attention to. You can use spreadsheets for this if you want, but you can also use your calculator. And then you can do a screen dump from your calculator so that we can actually see what's going on. You can do that, and you can stick that inside Word, so it works quite well. You can actually do comments to summarize what you're doing if you want to, especially if you're doing spreadsheets, because sometimes it's a bit hard to kind of follow that. If you are doing spreadsheets, especially for if you're going to do a moving average or indices, please pay attention to this. The first 5 to 10 rows is all we need. We don't need anything more than that. Okay, otherwise it just gets far too big. In your analysis and conclusion, which most people find quite hard, you've got to interpret what you have found in the light of your initial problem. So if you found that you didn't make any money over the time that you had the shares, then your analysis of this is along the lines of, I have found that you cannot make money in the share market by using these parameters. Maybe I should have gone longer term, maybe I should have had more shares, or those kind of things. If you're then linking it in to, say, the moving average, you can talk about when the moving average is telling you when to buy and sell, and you might be able to demonstrate that as well. A good thing to do is to summarize your findings in a table. Okay, it draws everything together before your conclusion, and it helps the person reading it to be able to see what's going on, but also it helps you to have everything tabulated there, so when you are starting to make a conclusion and draw and your analysis from that, it's clear and concise for you. Try to keep it down, the conclusion, to about 1.5 to 2 pages maximum. Max, be careful, because then you start raving. If you get too long than that, it tends to be a bit too hard to read, and you tend to start repeating yourself. Make sure you're well organized with your portfolio so it makes sense. You can put things, I would use Word a lot, And anything that's a repetitive type of thing, like lots and lots of calculations and those things, I would put them in appendices, because that makes it easier to do. So, and also down the last part here is how to actually reference your material. All these kind of things is in your handout, so you just check that because it's all there as well. You need to plan your time really carefully. Okay, so you need to plan what you're doing and set aside time to actually do it. Now, there's going to be computer time booked in at school to be able to do it, and homework time as well, but also remembering that we've got the exam coming up, so you're probably going to be revising for that, even though the gear in this is very good preparation for the exam. So there you go, that's the project. Good luck and have fun.